Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Talking About Rock. I'm Rob Edwards. Today's guest has been working in studios for over 35 years. He has engineered, mixed, produced for every major label. And he's worked with such artists as ZZ Top, B.B. King, John Denver, Dolly Parton, Molly Hatchet, Marie Osmond, Olivia Newton-John, and of course, our friends in LOST CIRCUS. Please welcome Tom Harding from Tom Harding Productions to the show.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing?
Hey, Tom. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
So quite the list there. I'm sure you got quite the stories to tell of, different artists you work with and the different albums that you're a part of or helped out with. And I want to get to that. And I definitely want to get to the stories, of course, about, working with our friends out there in LOST CIRCUS. And we're so glad that they're doing well. But I kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind, because you've been doing this for quite a while. Can you kind of tell our guests a little bit of how it started in the studios and how it's evolved? Obviously, we're into digital now and we're into streaming and things like that. But back in earlier recordings, it was much more simplified things.
It was simplified, but it was more complicated. So I started out as an assistant engineer, and back then we had the 24-track analog tape machine. Well, the assistant had to get there an hour to 2 hours early just to align the tape machine. There's all these, in simplicity's sake, there's about 6 knobs that have to be turned for each track on a tape machine. And for every, if it come from one studio to the other, they're all set differently. So the assistant has to get there. He has to do that. And as an assistant, that's kind of what you're in charge of, is that tape machine. When I first started, if there had to be, if you finished a take, you have to slice leader in there and things like that. And things that we take for granted now in the digital world, like, oh, I hit this button and I go to a chorus, I'm there. Back then, we had to watch the little counter on the machine and write everything down. And then, of course, tape wasn't as forgiving as digital. If you cut it too loud, that snare drum is shot and that take is shot. And another thing, and I got to have quite a reputation at this. I was good at cutting analog tape. So nowadays we can take multiple takes in Pro Tools and do what we call a playlist, and then we can combine the playlist. Well, back then we couldn't do that. We just had to take a take and be. So I got to where I could take the numbers down and listen to the takes. And so if the producer said, I loved take one's chorus, but the rest of the song sucked, and he said, but take 3, everything was good but that chorus, I could take and cut that chorus out of the take 1 and drop that in to take 2. Now, of course, that took hours to do, and is again now, boom, 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 we push 3 or 4 buttons and
right. I was going to say, it had to be a huge time-consuming effort back then.
And when I first started, we didn't have automation, so when you're mixing, you've probably seen pictures where there's like 6 guys bent over the console because everybody's moving or pushing a button at the same time. And if that one guy makes a mistake, then you're done. You're finished. A friend of mine, Steve Marcantonio, he was the assistant on that Jake Isles band Centerfold. And
great album.
His only job was to ride the snare drum up and down in the choruses. And he was assigned that. So all those kind of things. Again, one little mistake, you got to start over. Now it's all in the box and everything is much more simplified. And from a band point of view, things are a lot cheaper because bands were back in the heyday, analog tape for a 2-inch reel, which was about 15 minutes, was costing them $300 or $400 a roll.
Right.
And
yeah.
Now you can go buy a hard drive for $100.
Right. Exactly. So, exactly. When I was starting bands when I was real younger, I would have given my right arm to have one of those nice big, huge mixing boards that they have. The big 24-track. There was like right. $8,000 back in the day. But now you can do stuff with Pro Tools, and I know a lot of folks that we've spoken to. They'll do their basic stuff or their demo stuffs at home, and then they'll go to studios still to master.
Right now, I'm presently mixing an album for a guy named Adam Mitchell. And you may not know who Adam Mitchell is, but I guarantee you've heard a bunch of Kiss records that he's written all the songs on. And so we did the opposite of this. We cut this at Sound Emporium, and then he lives up in Telluride, and he comes and does all his vocals up there, sends me the vocals, and then I mix it here in my home studio.
Right.
So again, a lot simpler, a lot cheaper. We can move files all around. I remember I don't know if you ever heard, there was a band called Kennedy Rose, and they were signed to Sting's label, and I co-produced them. And we wanted Sting to play bass on one of the songs. Well, Sting wasn't going to fly to Nashville to play bass on it. So we had to make a copy of the 24 track, then have it specially packaged, and then we had to counter it from Nashville to London for one of the assistants in London to pick up and have Sting put bass on it. Then it all had to come back to us in the exact same way. So that took over a week to do, and now we could do that in about 2 hours.
Right. You can just send the file or whatever.
Send him the file, he plays it, he can send it back to us even and ask us if we liked it or not. And in fact, when he did that, just to be sure, he did like 3 different passes. I mean, it's Sting, we're gonna like whatever he played, but he did like 3 passes of it just to make sure he covered all bases.
Right. So I want to talk about a little bit about some of the different techniques that are used in the studios, right? Or some of the backtracking or, doubling or things like that. Sure. I know like some of the real early artists, like I'll just take it for example, they were like experimenting with things like the Beatles. They would do all kinds of different things, or even Eddie Van Halen, he would try, very odd different things. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the studio techniques that you've used in the past?
Well, yeah, doubling vocals, for instance, is a big example. They set up a delay because they didn't have the tracks. You realize the Beatles only had 4 tracks, so if they wanted to do a double vocal, which is real common, they had to use a delay box or something. I'm not even quite sure. You can now buy the plugin from Waves that reproduces, but now we just create another track and do it. Backward stuff has always been real popular. And again, in the olden days of analog, you had a track sheet that listed what was on every song. Track 1 was kick all the way down to track 24. Well, to record backwards, then you had to flip the tape. So you had to put a mark on the tape of where you wanted the backwards thing to happen. And then you had to calculate in your head, okay, if I want it on this snare beat, I've got to play the backwards snare beat a beat early. So then you flip the tape, and when you flip the tape, you had to write your track sheet backwards. Because if you went and put track 1 in record, you were really recording on track 24. So gotcha. Back in the analog days, we had to, even to record a simple thing backwards, you had to sit there and start calculating things out and do things, and then record it, flip it back, and listen to, oh, it doesn't work. And of course, now again, in Pro Tools, we push a button, say, play backwards.
Right. Were there also scenarios like where some artists maybe wanted to move some things in the studio around, maybe have some type of dampening or have some walls set up for a certain type of sound, or more of a bassier type of sound or something?
Well, yeah. Originally most studios were dead. If you've ever been to Sun, or even the big RCA here, they were built really dead. It wasn't till the 80s that we started livening up studios. And then you could go to studios like Ardent in Memphis, for instance. What they've done is they built a really good live room, but then they put drapes in it so they can move it, because sometimes you don't want all that big reflection on the sound. If you're doing vocals, you don't want the vocals to have a bunch of early reflection coming back. But if you're doing drums, you do. So you move things around, and you can literally take baffles, people call them gobos or baffles, and you create a room within a room to deaden things down for certain things. Again, depends. You don't want everything to have a lot of room sound.
Right. You've worked with so many different artists. Has there been times where some of them have come in and say they really kind of understand the studio and they understand what they want to get out of it? Has there been some of those times where they're real familiar with it?
It always seems like it's one or the other. Like you work with, a good example is I used to work as an assistant for Ricky Skaggs. Ricky knew anything and everything he wanted. He knew how to get that sound. He knew, he even tours with a big road case full of expensive tube mics and everything. So he knows exactly, like he'll say, I want to get this mandolin and I want that EMT 251 reverb and I want the AKG microphone on it and everything. He knows exactly what he wants and he hears it in his head. Then you work with another producer or another artist and they'll say, well, I don't know what I want, but it sounds kind of like this or it sounds kind of like that. And that's where it gets expensive and long because you start experimenting around looking for things.
Yeah, I've read some articles and I've watched some interviews. Sometimes, the producers really have the ear and a lot of times they can guide the artist and kind of they feel out what they want and they can say, well, let's try this or let's try that. Maybe that's what you're hearing in your head and I can help you with that. And a lot of the earlier bands we've talked to, a lot of the newer bands, they've even said because they're newer to the studios and they don't understand all the different technologies yet. So they were really glad that they were guided by a lot of these folks to help them out in different aspects to clean up the sound, make it crisper, or to even they would have an idea and it would kind of change the sound and make it more rich.
And I always think of it, you kind of think of a producer as you have a ball or a square, whatever you want to call, and the artist is inside of it. And that artist can move all around that circle they want until they get outside that circle. And that's the producer's job, is to pull them back inside that circle. Because you never want to stifle your artist's creativity, but you don't want them to get so outside that you as a producer know no one's ever going to get what they're trying to say.
Right. I know some of the big names and producers, like say Ted Templeman for Van Halen, had quite the touch for them. Rob Rock, another big guy.
Right.
Mutt Lange for AC/DC, gelled with them perfectly and understood, what they were trying to do. I don't think we would have had some of the songs that we had if it wasn't for those folks.
Oh yeah. And it's funny you say that. That's how Adam got involved with Kiss. He didn't know Paul or Gene at the time. The producer said, you guys need some help with your songs. You need to write with this guy. Desmond Child is another perfect example. A lot of people write with Desmond because he has that touch of knowing how to make that hit song.
Yeah, when he started writing, I think for Aerosmith in the 80s, it really gave them a big bump. Definitely. Exactly. It was because they were re-energized. They were back from that heyday of partying. They were ready to finally get to work.
They were ready to write serious songs.
And you talked about Kiss there a little bit too. You could definitely tell from the early Kiss record stuff was very raw, very basic, and how that progressed and changed. After Destroyer came out, I think things started to really change for them.
Well, and if you know anything about Kiss, they credit Eddie Kramer for changing their sound and giving them that edge that they were always looking for. Even though Eddie produced the live album, but then they didn't work again in the studio with him until Rock and Roll Over. And that's they really credit him for helping them dial in a more heavy sound.
Yeah, I think everybody remembers that album for sure. They were talking about that today on the Eddie Trunk Show about Rock and Roll Over and Destroyer. All those were the defining records pretty much for Kiss for sure. Exactly. But let's talk about some of the stuff you worked on here. Okay. So we went through your list a little bit. You got to work with ZZ Top. You worked with them on what, Pincushion and Antenna?
Yeah, well, I guess it's Antenna. And I actually the first record I worked on them with was the Greatest Hits record. So a funny story on that. I don't know if you're familiar with that Greatest Hits. There's Viva Las Vegas on it. And that started out as Billy playing around with just a little sequencer on the bus. And he sequenced Viva Las Vegas and put a scratch guitar track down. And then Dusty sang it backstage. And then he came to Nashville and we started adding guitars to it and background vocals. And we hired these girl singers and he wanted to really get that Vegas-y sound. And so we did all the guitars. And I think Dusty ended up re-singing it back in Memphis because Joe Hardy mixed it. I didn't mix it. I just did all the guitars and the background vocals on it. And that was my first introduction to ZZ Top. And the way I got introduced to them is that Kennedy Rose band that I worked with, they used a keyboard player who did all the programming for them, and then also worked with ZZ Top, and they were down in Houston struggling with guitar sounds. And I was kind of like the guy in Nashville that got the heavy guitar sounds because I'd worked with Intruder and all these bands. So they called me and they came into town and we cut guitars for a day. And then after that, Billy would call me and he'd fly me to Houston and we'd work down in his studio in Houston and do guitars. And he had produced a Rainer somebody for Elvis Costello's label, and I mixed that record down at his studio. And Billy was always just a real fun hang.
Yeah, they were, when they first came out, I thought they were such an underrated band, but I thought they got an amazing sound from just the three guys. You know,
my favorite Billy Gibbons story is we're struggling to get a guitar sound at his studio, you know, and he's like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And we finally plug this thing in and he plays it. And it's just like, bam, that's Billy Gibbons. And he goes, what do you think of that? And I said, Billy, that's incredible. That sounds like Legs. And all of a sudden, Billy Gibbons is in the studio serenading me and playing me Legs and singing it to me on the guitar. And I thought, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. This is unreal.
Well, it's going to be one of their biggest hits ever, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah, he's such an underrated guitar player for sure.
He really is.
Really is. And then, losing Dusty and things changing. And
oh yeah.
It was I guess they're carrying on though. I haven't seen them perform yet with the newer guy, but
yeah, they'll always carry on. Billy will make sure it always carries on. Billy is actually Houston royalty, so he doesn't want it to stop.
That's excellent. Yeah. So you also worked with another legendary person, BB King. You worked with him
as a Grammy Award for that record.
Yeah, for his Blue Summit record. That had to be an amazing experience to be in the same room with BB King. I would just be like in shock.
Yeah. And he's the nicest man you will ever meet. And I don't know if you know anything about that record. What that is BB decided to make a record where he did a duet with all the blues artists that he grew up with or that he participated. So all the Chess Records people and the Kent Record people. So he had Etta on there, and he had Buddy Guy and Albert Collins, and I can't even remember, one of the Waters sisters and one of the Houston sisters. It was just a who's who of the blues world. And when we'd cut that at Arden back in their C room, and it was just every morning a new artist would come in, and we'd do one song start to finish, and then BB would go to lunch and take a nap, and then the evening would be the same thing. We'd come back with a different artist, and we'd do that. And here, this guy's 70-some years old, and we're doing that. We'd finish the second song about 8, 9 o'clock at night. He'd jump in the limo and drive down to Beale Street and then play a full set every night before we went to bed or anything. That was every night. We did that for 10 days. I mean, he was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's such an amazing artist, such a loss to the music world without him. Iconic. No one will ever replace him or emulate his style. What he had was totally unique for sure. Yeah. Another artist that you got the chance to work with was also Dolly Parton. I think you worked on the White Limousine album with her as well, right?
The White Limousine album.
Yeah,
I did.
How was that working with her? Now she seems like a real down home.
Oh, she was so professional and so gifted. Nobody can believe it. A lot of her vocals are her scratch vocals. She's that good. She can walk in one time and sing it, and that's it. It's done. It's perfect. And I remember, now I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember the name of the song, but there was a ballad on that record that's nothing but vocal, piano, and strings. And she walked into the studio and she says, I just wrote this song. Can we cut it? And then we're like, yeah, sure. She walked out to the piano, played it one time. They charted it and she sang it down one time, and we were just like, wow. And it was a #1. I just can't remember the name of the song, but it's on White Limousine, which I think had 4 #1s on it.
Yeah, she had, such a string of songs. Everybody remembers her.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of odd to us in the rock world, though, that she's currently nominated to be in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So she's definitely a great artist in her own right. I just think was kind of odd to see that, but we wish her nothing but the best of luck, obviously, of course. You also got a chance to work with Marie Osmond and Olivia Newton-John too.
Yeah, no, Marie, funny story on the Marie Osmond thing. So I was the assistant engineer. Paul Worley was a producer. My wife, before she was my wife, was his production assistant. So that's how I met my wife, was through Paul Worley. And Ed C., I was his assistant, and he co-produced with Paul Worley. So one day we're mixing this song at Treasure Isle. That's where I was the assistant at. And we need some splicing tape. They need me to edit something together. And I said, oh, Paul, we're out of tape. And he goes, well, go next door. Brent Mayer's got a studio next door. Can you go over there and ask if you can borrow some? And I go, yeah, sure. So I walk over there and I go in and I open the door to the studio, and Brent Mayer's in there with an artist named Sylvia. I don't know if anybody remembers her. And they're mixing the exact same song that we're mixing.
Really?
And I opened the door and I heard the song, and I just closed the door and I ran as fast as I could back to the studio. And I said, Paul, they're mixing the same song next door. That proceeded to be one of the biggest blow-ups I've ever heard in a studio before. I mean, the phone lit up everywhere, but turns out it was 2 different writers, and nobody told the other one that the other person had cut it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. But so was that for Marie, or
that was Marie was on Capitol, and I think Sylvia was on MCA, and I think both artists ended up scrapping it. They both got so mad that the other one wasn't notified that I don't think it ever came out by either artist.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the best way to go with that.
Probably.
Avoid the lawsuits and the headaches and just press on, right?
Yeah.
So let's kind of get back to a little bit more rock and roll. You got a chance to work with Molly Hatchet also back in the day also.
Yeah. So
you worked with them.
I had worked with Terry Manning, who was from Memphis, who he engineered Eliminator by ZZ Top. And he came to town, and his first thing he came to town is, do you remember Jason and the Scorchers? Did you ever know them?
Yeah.
They were originally Jason and the Nashville Scorchers. Then they became Jason and the Scorchers. Well, Terry, he engineered and produced their record when I was the assistant at Treasure Isle. And so we did that, and we did another band called Tim Krekel. And one day, Terry calls me, and he's in Orlando, and he's working with Molly Hatchet. And he said, do you think we could do, this is the craziest thing. He says, do you think we could do all 10 songs, background vocals on all 10 songs on the Molly Hatchet record on so-and-so date? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's quite a bit, but I guess we could do it.
Give it a try.
he says, okay. And he goes, I'll be there at 6 p.m. And I went, 6 p.m. We got to do 10 songs starting at 6 p.m. So anyways, I get there. Like I said, I had to line the tape machine, and he goes, oh, by the way, we're going to do a sax overdub first. So Jim Horn comes in, who's played with the Rolling Stones and everybody. He comes in and puts a sax overdub on. And then he hired 3 professional background singers to come in and sing. And we worked. And then Terry started singing with him. And I would say we went till about 6 in, but we got all 10 songs done. I do remember I didn't even go home that night. I just passed out in the studio.
So they must have been a little under the gun to get that product out, to get that album out.
Oh, he was mixing it. He left that day. He left that night, drove to Memphis, and started mixing it the next day.
Do you know what album that was for?
That under the gun to get it done.
Do you know what Molly Hatchet album that was for?
It's the one where the guy's sitting on the horse.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know the name of it, but I have a plaque somewhere in my room, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not that fluent with every Molly Hatchet album.
I'm not either.
But unfortunately, they haven't been around.
That was the first album that Danny Joe? Was that the singer?
Yeah.
Danny Joe Brown. He had left the band and he'd come back, and that was the first album he'd done coming back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they made some changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's a good record. I've never worked that hard for one and done that many songs in one day.
Yeah, like you said, they were definitely they must have been under the gun to get that out.
Oh yeah.
That's got Dreams I'll Never See on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was the first. Was that the first album?
No.
Because he's on the horse on the first album.
Let me.
That's okay. That's all right.
I'll find it in a minute while we're.
No worries. Yeah, don't worry about it. So we can move on. I thought I could find it quick on there. So let's talk about our friends here out there in Nashville, Lost Circus.
Lost Circus, yeah.
Yeah, with Steve Livy and Kenny Knight. They're friends of the show, and we loved what they're doing. And tell us a little bit about working with them in the studio. Okay, how were the guys? Were they giving you crap?
Preface this a little bit. So the connection to Lost Circus is Tom Gregory, who's the drummer. I don't know if you know that. Now, Tom and I go back all the way back to college. So we were in college together, and oddly enough, we looked nothing alike, but our names were Harding and Gregory, and we sat next to each other. Nobody knew who was Harding and knew who was Gregory. They called us the Tom brothers all the way through college. So when we got out, we were producing together, and then Tom had a band called Triple X. And we did some demos with them, and they got close to a deal, and but didn't get one. And then our attorney called us and connected us with a band in Nashville called Intruder, who, if you know anything about Nashville, they're pretty legendary. And so Tom and I produced the first Intruder record, and Tom went on. I got a manager that handled me as a producer and engineer, and Tom went on to do video stuff. And so we still hung out and did anything. When I got married, he was the best man at my wedding. So that's how connected Tom and I are. So out of the blue, about right before the pandemic starts, Tom calls me and he goes, "I'm in a new band and they're great. They're great." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "I want you to produce this." And I went, "Well, let me hear it." And he sent me the stuff, and I was like, wow, this stuff is really cool. So about the time everything started, we couldn't do much. And finally, one of the rehearsal halls opened up, and we went there, and I sat in. And the first rehearsal I went to, they didn't even have a bass player. Steve was playing bass, which he was hating by the moment. And then they started getting me some demos, and we started working some things out. And then of course they got Chad on bass, and I went to the next practice. I went, wow, where did this guy come from? I mean, freaking amazing. And so over the months, I would go to rehearsals, I'd give some suggestions, like, oh, let's try this on this. And always willing to work. Unlike a lot of younger bands, they never question anything. I was like, "Can we try this?" And then I'd go, "Oh, that sucked. Forget I ever said that." And then other times, it would be good. So we rehearsed and we rehearsed, and they rehearsed and they rehearsed. We decided to go in the studio. So we wanted to find a studio where we could just all be relaxed. So we went out to a studio out here in Franklin called Dark Horse, which is just an old log cabin. And we basically over Valentine's weekend, we camped out there. They have a full kitchen. Tom made us all steaks one night and everything. Went in there and just worked and worked and worked, got our songs done. And then came home, and most of the guitars Brian, who's just an amazing guitar player, he did the guitars at home, and Kenny, when it went over there, Kenny did a little bit of guitars here and a little bass here at my place, but for the most part, all the guitars were done at Brian's. And then I did Steve and I would just camp out on the weekends and do vocals. And Steve, I've worked with a lot of great vocalists, and I think Steve is probably the best I've ever worked with. That guy's just amazing. Big old guy. He can sing high, he can sing low. You've heard it. I mean, his range on that record is just astronomical.
Yeah, we love the debut album from Lost Circus. Our co-host, Jerry Schmidt in Nashville there, he couldn't be with us tonight, but he's friends with everyone and has known the guys for a while. We love this stuff. When I heard it, I thought this was great. And then I saw the videos coming out, and I hope things.
When your drummer owns a video production company, that doesn't hurt.
Right.
And that's only the second record that I've ever engineered and produced that I didn't mix. And I wanted to bring in another element to it, a fresher.
Someone to get a fresh take on it and give you a different
take. So I actually hired Ryan Griffin, who started out way back when as my intern. When I owned a studio and he was in college, he started out as my intern. And then he now has his own studio and everything. And we just would go in every week. Again, we were kind of weekend warriors, show up on Friday night and mix. The band would come in and out because they don't need to be there for the whole time. And a couple weekends, and we had what I think is just a great record.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous. I think it's just going to keep moving forward, and I love the first track, "She's a Fire," when they came out, and it was just it sounds excellent.
And the thing is, some people say, "Oh, it sounds kind of 80s." Well, good, because that's what we were going to.
What was wrong with that time? Nothing was wrong.
We wanted it to sound like a modern 80s record.
Yeah.
And when people say it sounds 80s, I'm like, good, that's what we want.
Yeah, you see so many 80s artists coming back now and touring, especially with the streaming being the product now. You don't really have an album that you're putting out all the time and you're selling it. Touring is the thing. So all these 80s artists are coming back around again. Obviously that's the time frame I grew up in and the music I love. And so when I heard it, I thought it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was just excellent. It was nice to hear that come back with a fresh new band and a fresh take on that. Yes, definitely very, very cool. Yeah, I loved it.
It's full of energy. It doesn't sound stiff because the guys all played in the studio together. We didn't piecemeal it together. I mean, Tom was out there playing drums. Brian and Kenny were playing guitar. I mean, everybody was going. Then we added to it, but we went all down as a band. Steve giving it 100% on every vocal.
Excellent. Yeah, I really love it. So let's talk about the Nashville area there a little bit. It's Jerry and I discuss this all the time. It's become the mecca for music. It used to be just like the landmark for country style type music, but now it's grown to be everything. There's so many artists that have moved there.
Everybody lives here.
So many different things going on. You guys got different shows, different festivals, so many clubs, so many different styles. There's the Rockin' Pod thing that happens there. So much going on. You guys got to be really busy now. Different stuff.
And it's funny. A friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go see Alice Cooper with her the other night, not the other night. It was a couple months ago. But we went to see Alice Cooper, and she goes, "Oh, that's my next door neighbor," and that was the bass player. I mean, everybody lives here.
Yeah. We were gonna I was gonna go catch that show in Nashville a couple of months ago, but I wasn't able to do it. I really wanted to see that tour. Yeah, I love Alice and I love Ace Frehley. I really wanted to see that.
All the guys in Ace's band are from here.
Right. That's another thing. Yeah.
They all live here. Everybody lives here.
There's so many people. Yeah. Billy Sheehan from Buffalo, he lives out there now. So
does he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he lives out there. There's so many folks have moved out there because there's just so much going on. It's like a hotbed now for different music styles, up and coming bands. I see new acts all the time.
The best session musicians in the world live here. For instance, this record I'm working on now of Adams, Mike Brignardello plays bass on it. Well, you don't know the name Mike Brignardello, but I guarantee you know the band Giant. And Mike was the bass player in Giant, along with Dan Huff, who's now one of the hottest producers in Nashville. So yeah, everybody lives here now.
Yeah, and the other band that came out of there recently, we talked to a while back, Naked Gypsy Queens.
Okay.
Came from out there, and there's always new music. We're going to be talking to another band in another month or so, Lydia's Castle, from out there. They're releasing new material. It just keeps coming from out there, which is excellent.
Tom Kiefer lives here, of course, the Cinderella guys.
That's all you had to tell me. I'll be out there. I love Tom Kiefer stuff.
Yeah. So he lives here, and Dave Mustaine. Now, Nashville's a really weird place because, we're right in the middle and it's not very narrow. So at one end of the state is Kiefer in a town called Hendersonville, and the other end is Mustaine in a town called Franklin. And they're only about 50 miles apart, but one's almost in Alabama and one's almost in Kentucky, because we're a very narrow state.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to catch Tom if he puts out something and starts touring again. I really want to catch his solo tour. I loved him back in the day with Cinderella. It was great.
Oh yeah, Mark Slaughter, he lives here.
Yep. Actually, yes, Slaughter's going to actually be coming to Buffalo. We got a couple of shows coming up in Buffalo. Slaughter's coming to Buffalo. Hair Nation, a local Buffalo band with Jim Crean's going to be opening for them. Stephen Piercy, the voice of Rat's, going to be coming here also, so that'll be cool coming up this summer. What else? A lot of stuff going on. Yeah, Quiet Riot's coming back here. Rudy Sarzo obviously back in the band. So yeah, we're starting to get some shows back here. Different things happening. Actually, I'm going to see. Matter of fact, I'm going to see Jack Russell's Great White Saturday.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, are going to be here. Yeah, so I've been looking forward to see Great White for a long time. I never got to see him back in the day. So
we need to get the Lost Circus boys up there.
I know, that's what I told them. I go, when are you guys coming out this way to play some shows? Definitely. We're gonna look around and see, what we can hook them up with, because I'd love to see them come out here. Definitely that would be great for sure.
Be perfect.
They definitely there's not as many bars and different venues out here as you guys got out there. You guys got so much stuff out there going on. You got Bowie's. You got the Basement East. I don't even know if Jerry was on here. He could name them all off the top of his head.
And they come and go under a new name, but we got so many places. They got that. What is that place out in Murfreesboro now? They have I can't even think of it. Not Springwater. I can't think of it. There's a big outdoor venue, like a 3,000 seat outdoor venue in Murfreesboro now. There's a lot of places.
Yeah, there's so many shows going on. It's just crazy. I got to get out there. I'm gonna have to go out there and bug and visit Jerry for a while. We're gonna have to hit up some clubs and check some stuff out. That'll be such a great time. I can't wait to do that. As things open up this summer, because looks like we're trending in the right way. Knock on wood. Let's not jinx it.
Summer, I think everything should be back to normal.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. So that's definitely the way it's turning. I'm starting to see different shows being booked and different artists come out here, different tours being announced. I know the Kiss tour is starting back up. Scorpions are going to be going back out on tour.
Did I see Queensryche, I think?
Oh yeah, Queensryche is coming back. And I think they're playing with Judas Priest, I think, right?
Yes.
I think they're playing with Priest, who I'm gonna have to say this, who needs to be in Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you folks are listening, vote Judas Priest, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, heavy metal. Let's get it done. So there's my plug for that.
There you go.
Because I think they need to be in there. We need to make that happen. We
finally got Rush in there, so we ought to be able to get Judas Priest in there.
I know, right? I just don't understand. I don't understand it. I mean, I know they need to make certain people happy and they need to do certain things, but there's just some things that us as fans we don't understand.
Right.
like nothing against Eminem, but I don't know why he's on the list. Okay, I don't understand that.
When you go to the Hall of Fame, there's quite a few people you wonder why.
Yeah, I was there a couple of years ago, and I'm actually going to be going again with my girlfriend coming up in March. We're going to go back out, and I'm gonna do a little stuff from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And if
cool.
Yeah, and if some of these numbers don't come up, we're gonna have to slam, because I know lots of people are not happy with stuff they do.
Well, even my son, who's 24 years old, is now like into all this 80s pop stuff like Journey and REO Speedwagon and all these people, and he's going, why is a band like Styx not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean,
exactly.
He goes, Dad, they've had tons of hit records, whether you like them or not. They've done a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I saw them this past summer at a Erie County Fair out here this past summer. They were phenomenal. Sounded amazing.
He wants me to take it. He goes, let's go see him.
The show was great. The vocals were great. Tommy Shaw sounded amazing. Oh, definitely go see him. Gowan playing piano for them was totally the right fit. It was such an awesome show. My girlfriend, we took her daughter who's 14, and she saw Styx, and she was like blown away. She was like blown. She's like, what is?
I realized that people used to really sing and move around.
Yeah, she was like, what is this? And she's like, wanted more and more, and like her eyes were glued to the stage. I'm like, this is how rock and roll is meant to be. These guys are the real deal. That's
why Lost Circus is around.
Exactly. Lost Circus is definitely the real deal, also, for sure. I hope they kick on a tour and they start moving around and somebody picks them up. That would be outstanding to see them, come around the circuit.
It'll all come together for them. It's there.
So let's talk about you and what's going on with you. So you have your own production company.
Yeah, I actually have two production companies. I do the rock thing, and then I have a side that does more country kind of stuff, and that's called H2 Productions. I do it with a songwriter friend of mine named T.W. Hale. And so we have this one country guy named Dennis Ledbetter. We just produced his 16th #1 on the independent charts, and he's about as hardcore country Merle Haggard as you can get, but really fun. I'm doing the Adam record, and then I think I introduced you. I think you're going to interview Gene Hadley.
Yes,
from Knoxville.
Yes, we're trying to connect with Gene. Yep.
I just finished Gene's record. Gene used to be because Gene had an outing with a hockey puck, and he does
right. He told us, unfortunate collision.
Gene was in a band that Tom and I produced way back when called Hard Knocks, and we did an album for them, and they actually fired Gene and hired Rick Rule to be their singer, and then Rick went on to be the lead singer in Every Mother's Nightmare. And Gene and I actually used to teach college together too. But anyways, this summer I just finished rebuilding my deck, and I was sitting there admiring it. My phone rang, and Gene says, Tom, can you mix my record? And all these guys during COVID were making records at their house.
Right. That's what all the artists were doing, because they couldn't tour. So they were writing.
We were talking about passing files around.
Yep.
You couldn't go see somebody, but you could record and then send the files. I did another record for a guy named Joel Shoemake, who I've known for years, and also happens to be Steve Libby's best friend in Lost Circus. And he had the same thing. He goes, well, man, I got this record. Can you mix it? And so same thing, mixed it, passed files around, and ended up getting that one done. So because of COVID, it's been really busy. I'm producing an artist in Australia. Same thing. He sends me a guitar vocal, and that's it, and a click track. And then I build a track for him and mix it for him and send it back. So staying pretty busy. I tell myself I'm semi-retired, but I'm not sure I'm as retired as I think I am.
It sounds like you're a busy guy, and you're doing like what a lot of people were doing. You're doing your house stuff, building a deck. A lot of folks were doing that too.
Oh, I know that was a pandemic thing. Working
right. The lumber prices were going like through the roof. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Right. Yeah. Crazy stuff. I know. I know. So you've done everything. You've used all kinds of different varied songs from country to rock to blues. You got all the different things you've had your hands in. That's great. If artists want to reach out to you or get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do it, to contact you if they want to
contact me on Facebook, Tom Harding, or my email is thardingproductions@iCloud. And feel free to contact me, or they can call me. I don't care. It's 615-498-8865. And yeah, always willing to listen to somebody and see what we got going on.
And they can pass you files, and you can do it electronically.
Files. We can go, if they want to cut a track, we can go to the studio. I know all the studios in town, studios in Canada. I've worked all over the United States. So, whatever an artist is comfortable with. Some artists want to stay at home. Some artists want to go out of town. So it just depends.
Yeah, there's so many different bands that have formed and upcoming stuff going on. So yeah, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of business going on over the summer and stuff. But so folks out there, if you have projects and stuff you're working on, get a hold of Tom before his list gets filled up here, and he doesn't have time for you until next year or something like that. So
until the next pandemic, which we hope never happens.
We hope that. Yeah, we hope we're all done with this. So great. So good to speak with you, Tom. Really appreciate it, folks. So excellent. So if you folks want to hear more from us, or you have comments or questions, please feel free to email us at talkingaboutrock@gmail.com. Please like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And as always, if you want to see this interview and more interviews, please check us out on our YouTube channel. Tom, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it.
Much success in the future. We hope we'll hear from you again, man.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.